Yay, we're live now. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second SWARMathon, a series about exploring how AI is reshaping our world and its alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If you're not familiar with these goals, check out the link in the comments. I'm Mahnaz Hajesmaeili, and I'm happy to be here with my amazing co-host and Cantera. Today's topic is the one that inspires both hope and reflection: AI and nature, and the opportunities and challenges it brings to shape our sustainable future. We will explore how artificial intelligence can drive innovations in climate resilience, biodiversity restoration, and resource optimization while addressing its trade-offs, such as energy consumption and equity concerns. Today's discussion will connect deeply with key SDGs like SDG 13, climate action, and SDG 15, life on land. The big question we are asking today is, how can AI be a transformative force for sustainability while safeguarding our ecosystems and environment? So, to guide the conversation, we're joined by three incredible panelists with expertise in biodiversity, conservation, and climate strategies, social impact innovation. And yeah, let's dive in. And
Thanks, Mahnaz. Hi, everyone. I would just like to get started by asking all of our panelists to introduce themselves, sort of like you would in a Google work meeting, just to get acquainted and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Val, would you like to go first?
Sure. So my name is Val, and I'm a social impact strategist, and now moving into an advising role. Essentially, I'm the person you call when you are tired of running into the same problem. If you want it to go bigger, and if there's just some deeper context that is missing. I work with clients across, policy settings, the nonprofit world, the for-profit world, and the more entertainment world too. I'm kind of in the middle, like a bridge per se, to connect everyone. So yeah, that's really what I do. And thank you.
Awesome. Ellie, how about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie, and I'm really excited to be here today. Actually, my background is in environmental science and sustainability and kind of community engagement, and my work focus on bridging scientific researches with practical application. So how we can make it more easier and, the complex issues more easier for everyone to get. And I've been exploring the ways to enhance climate resilience and communication, communicating complex environmental issues with stakeholders who are a part of, natural pool. And specifically, I'm working on collaborative natural resource management. And now, as an environmental project manager, I'm kind of making like the um, scientific research more practical.
nice.
Okay, Cameron.
Well, I'm an Australian currently living in Albania. It's beautiful here. And my background is forest science, and I've also worked in IT. So there's these twin themes of nature and technology. And the two things I'm doing at the moment are teaching an 18-month online diploma of sustainable operation. So it's industrial ecology, measuring carbon footprint. And the other thing is I've just convened EcoLaunch, which is an accelerator for startups focused on nature-based solutions, nature tech, biodiversity conservation, and ecological restoration.
Love that. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's dive in and start the conversation. So, Cameron, as someone deeply involved in nature tech and nature-based solutions through EcoLaunch, could you share specific examples of how AI is being integrated with traditional ecological knowledge to support ecosystem restoration?
Well, there's a few. There's a real paradox with artificial intelligence because while on the one hand it can significantly enhance and optimize efforts, there's also a cost with that because of the computational load and the use of water. Training an AI model some of them have generated 100,000 tons of carbon. So, but in terms of projects, I'll give a few examples. There's one in Mongolia, and it's looking at modeling the restoration efforts there to avoid desertification. And there's another one in Australia that's looking at post-fire recovery. In Western Greece, there's an AI model that's looking at soil health. So these enable us to make decisions about where to act. Another example, in New Zealand, they've got an invasive species. It's a legume. There's a few different ones. There's broom and a few others, and these are causing a lot of devastation to the local endemic species. And the combination of remote sensing and then machine learning and artificial intelligence to interpret that enables the rapid response to get in and identify outbreaks. But it's not always perfect. And there was one case where the AI modelling was disregarded because of too many false positives, and where they went back to monitoring. So there's still a lot of work to go to refine the models, but there's some really interesting examples from around the world of where AI is being used to help target and make decisions around restoration strategies.
Can we dive into post-fire recovery a little bit? I think that is front of mind for a lot of people. Val is in Los Angeles. Is AI being used in those efforts currently?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge. So a few months ago, we had a humanitarian symposium out here, and one of the representatives from Google for AI was here, and he was explaining how they deployed their technology for North Carolina, but it was specifically for floods. And so their technology that they've been continuously working on can kind of predict how far inland the floods will come before the actual floods come. It also helps with resource allocation, so making sure we can identify who's actually being affected and send what they need to them directly. So that speeds up recovery efforts post. And so I hope to see that be adapted to any disaster, essentially. I know there'll have to be some tweaks because of fire, especially like in Los Angeles. Our fires were so crazy because of the winds came too late. These winds typically come like October, the latest. It's January, and this is technically wet season. Still no water has dropped. Sun is still sunning. But as far as like right now, it could not just be deployed because everyone is just first like, let me help people hands-on. But from like a technical standpoint for helping with climate change, as well as a organizing and tracking standpoint, I've been looking, and I personally haven't been seeing that done yet.
Cameron, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just briefly, in Australia, there's a thing called CCE unit. It's a Cascade Context Encoder Unit. It's an advanced deep learning model, and it's designed for post-disaster forest recovery modelling. And it's being used in Australia to assess how forests are recovering after wildfires. And so it's accurately identifying damaged areas and where the regrowth is happening over time. It's based on satellite imagery.
Mhm. Okay.
If it's okay, I'm going to jump into the conversation. So I know that might not be engaged still in practical aspects, but I'm sure that there are lots of research centers and universities and labs that are working on using AI for predicting the behavior of fire, and also like creating models for how to deal with that. So I can't specifically name anything, but I've seen lots of news out that they are developing. And at Penn State, where I got my PhD, and I'm still like in touch, there are some centers specifically working on wildfire in California, and they are engaging AI. So hopefully it can be used, you know,
Have you
soon.
seen any work, any frameworks that work efficiently for this matter? Do you
I
have
am
any?
since it's not my research specifically, no, but I've been looking at how AI is using for communication in this matter, and unfortunately, I think it was not a good communication strategy. Like seeing lots of deepfake, pictures, or and also I'm sure you're gonna get to that, so if I'm going further ahead, just stop me please. But I'm sure that there's like, because of AI, the information spread so fast, so it's making it challenging to first trust the source of information and then stop it from being spread. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm mainly concerned about. So the ethical aspect or the misinformation. So no, Mahnaz, answering to your question, I haven't seen. I haven't looked for it, but I'm sure that I've seen lots of articles from university professors working on the same thing, like AI and fire and post-fire actions.
Yeah, I think all we are doing right now is like using AI for innovation and like for in everyday tasks and in our work areas, and we're not like actually thinking of the effect that it has on the environment and like how it's gonna affect people and the ecosystem around us. Like I've heard that like when you search something with ChatGPT, it's gets 3 times more energy than searching it on Google. So it's like crazy. So 3 times it's a lot. Like, and we are like playing around with ChatGPT and asking like different crazy questions, and like we're having fun with it, and we don't know the impact that we are making on environment by doing that. I think, yeah, as you said, Ellie, like there are so many misinformation, and there's not enough awareness about this topics. So
I stopped generating images. Somebody had told me that generating one AI image uses as much energy as it takes to charge your phone from 0 to 100.
Wow.
That was it for me. I don't know. I didn't even know if it was true, but it made me thoughtful enough to be very surgical and selective when I am using AI, and I work in AI. And I think I would love to ask for more resources around infographics, things like that, that show how much energy gets used,
Mhm.
how much
Mhm.
water gets used. I think that needs to circulate more. Yeah.
So I think that's
yeah,
another thing that goes back to ethic. This is the responsibility of companies who create those AIs to be more transparent about how energy they are consuming, and also be ask for help, for experts to make it, less to use less. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're gonna dip into it, but so I stop until you ask me question.
No, we're not stopping anyone. Like, just jump in and share your insights. Yeah. Valerie,
Well,
bringing your, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, like, from I think this is like a really important topic, especially as social media sends things so fast, and especially AI, the fake images, the fake videos. We've seen a flood of those during the fires, or just old things recirculating that's been slightly edited, and it's like, actually stop it. That was from 2022. I can tell you what that
Yeah.
event was. That actually went to Canada. That didn't happen here. But it's just so unfortunate how late we are to everything in the US, and how late regulation catches up, it even catches up. And so some of these things, I mean, I remember at least a year and a half ago, we were in a foreign policy conversation about AI, and it was already literally every other country was already talking about regulating it, and we had nothing on the board. Um, and so it's just like, now people are getting aware, like, no, AI takes a lot of water to cool, as well as it takes energy. And now, it's easy to say just simple sentences like that, but the hard data isn't as easily accessible or found, or like Elle said, it's not transparent. And so it's like, we need that. And some of just the, I guess, reservations is, how are we going to get that, especially when we have allowed a company like OpenAI to climb as fast as it did with power that it has, and now everyone has some type of AI accelerator, and this and that, and it's just getting so much bigger. Despite that, AI has actually been around way longer than generative AI, but it's so much bigger now, and I would personally love to see someone, one, be able to get the data of how it's damaging the environment. But if you do start an accelerator, how can we start a solution that helps us keep AI but lower the consumption on all levels, and
Yeah.
we can do like an and plus, and
Yeah.
Amen.
not too much.
Yeah.
So that always makes me think about the paradox that Cameron mentioned. We build this AI to help us do this, but how do we gauge if the resources it takes to create that AI is worth it?
If I might jump in there, there are approaches and frameworks you can use to actually assess that. One of them is life cycle analysis. So it looks at all of the environmental impact of something right across its entire life cycle, right back from resource consumption like water, power, even the environmental impacts of mining for the metals that make up the parts that you're using in the computers, like the whole from start, and then also the impact of disposal at the end of life. So you can take a whole life cycle assessment and then get an understanding of its impact so that you can then start to make some decisions around, you know, is it better to use this or not? And it may be or it may not be. So, but
Yeah.
that's one way. There are ways to mitigate the impact, such as using renewable energy for the energy source, and also where you locate these data centers matters. If you locate them in very cold parts of the earth, then the consumption is a lot lower.
I was going to speak to that
Yeah.
too. I think that this is definitely something that should be a little bit more state regulated, especially when you come to the plants itself, in mining. Because, for instance, not for AI, but I believe Elon's lithium for his cars and stuff is in a part of Texas that already, like, don't really have water. It's at the point where they are having to use timers in the showers to make sure everybody in the city can take a shower, and things like that is just a bigger environmental issue than it even had to be in the beginning, right? And so I love the idea of a life cycle analysis because, and not just like on a city level, it would have to be on a state level, right? Because certain cities can say, you know what, that price sounds good to me. And not to say that a governor or whatever still can't be bought, but it's just a little bit more enforced, in my opinion, at a state level to say, you can't operate in our state if you don't want to follow X, Y, and Z. And if you do want to bring this, here are the opportunities where you can actually, build your headquarters, so that it doesn't hurt those who already live here. And unfortunately, I did a lot of work in Texas. So they're seeing a lot of just repercussions, versus like living in a state like California. Yes, it's expensive, and we see certain companies moving out, but it's not necessarily because like the money isn't here. They still work here. They still know this is a customer base, right? This is we have a huge GDP. But a lot of them who do leave is because they're regulated to actually think about people and the environment. And so I would love to see this energy transcend across all of the US so that we can start really being a player, compared to like, where Cameron is, and or how he was saying like, oh, we actually have a wildlife technology in Australia. I'm the person that when I go in and consult government, they typically have never heard of anything. And one of the things that I'm always like quick to do is what is happening around the world? How do they solve this somewhere else? We're having a flooding issue. Well, in the Netherlands, they rebuilt their whole city to where it's planned for flooding, and now they've never been flooded. So what are we not doing, and why are we not looking to others? So yeah,
And why are we last to the party?
all the time.
Yeah.
So smart and so rich.
So I just
Yeah.
it's brought a question to my mind that when we talk about like estimation of like the energy consumption or whatever, um, we should be aware of who is our audiences because, for example, in the first step when let's say like the first generation of computer was invented. Sorry, it was like people knew that it's gonna cost for environment, but no one did anything, and we are still using that. We are still using everything, and we didn't go back. So it's like I think it needs to first start with a creating infrastructure, like educational infrastructure. This is my idea. So it should come with AI that, or we can use AI itself to teach people, not teaching, like to communicate the effect of AI to people in order to make it less destructive. So I'm pretty much agree with you that we need to calculate our effects, but who is gonna do something about that? Someone in power who has money? Never. I
No.
don't think so.
Yeah.
I've
And
seen it
people,
happen in Austin. It's being so I think it's a team of just like tech loving folks. We're all together at Capital Factory one day, big like entrepreneur hub for the South right now. And together they just started a collective. And then it's just been growing kind of like word of mouth and LinkedIn. And so I've seen efforts like this, trying to just make sure that they educate, but they are also like going to city and saying like kind of helping city also because like you were saying, there is essentially an educational barrier for all of the innovation that's coming. And unfortunately, those that are also like in these positions of power, they really also are not aware of how any of this works. Like they still don't even understand how we can record videos on TikTok. So it's just like when you
Yeah.
talk about AI, they're just, well, we know it exists. I know I can ask it a question. But I've seen on just like right now, it's more so grassroots people coming together, trying to do their best to hit as much as they can as AI is growing like really more rapid. And so it's proving to be effective, but it's also a couple cities here and there, right? And how much can you target if this is just a collective situation outside of everybody actually owns a business, outside of they have children, and it just keeps going further and further. And I think that's where the opportunity for like partnerships can really strengthen. Looking at like university power, an internal, you know, how like they have ERGs and things within like corporate companies. What does that look like to have it, you know, target there so that they can have some of that responsibility also in like local government, so they can have some of that responsibility with like training and stuff. But it also comes down to who really like even trains after you get the job. Some companies and places like to say, oh, we have a budget for da da da, but like, can we see the percentage of who actually uses it? And a lot of times,
Yeah,
it's actually very low.
exactly.
So it's just always
Yeah.
a conundrum of just, ugh.
Yeah,
Stressful
I
sometimes.
feel yeah.
Without
So I would like
minimizing.
okay. Sorry, Cameron, before you go, I wanted to ask our audience to share with us any questions that you have in the comments, and we will answer them at the end in the Q&A session that we have at the end of this conversation. So feel free to share your questions, and we will ask them from our speakers here. So yeah, sorry, Cameron, go ahead.
I was just going to say, without minimizing or downplaying the negative impacts and also the risks associated with the use of AI, there's also some really inspiring and important examples of where it's benefiting both people and nature from all over the world. So, like, for example, in Italy, it's used to plan integrated solutions for to address coastal erosion and flood mitigation. So it's using an AI supported planning tool. And then in Brazil, there's a thing called short-term memory and graph neural network, and it's also using a really fascinating model called a generative adversarial network, or GEN. So this is to work out rapid urban flood prediction and response in real time. So then as the flooding is occurring, they're able to know where's going to be flooded next. So it looks at surface runoff and peak flow, and there's so much happening in China. It's actually putting us all to shame. Like, they've so advanced in the Yallourn River Basin. They're predicting, they're using the medium to long term runoff for managing flood control and water resource management. And they've actually worked out there's a 1 month lag between certain atmospheric changes and runoff. So they're getting a 1 month warning of when floods are likely.
Wow.
And then in the Three Gorges Reservoir, they're using it for the hydropower management during the flooding seasons. And so they're optimizing the floodwater management. And then in the urban areas, I can't remember, it may be Beijing, I can't remember but they're using this sponge city concept. So they're using AI enhanced nature-based solutions for flood management and water reuse within urban settings. So it's really interesting what's happening.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. As someone who lived in China for 2 years, I know how they how they like they're very like improvement. They made a lot of improvement in technology, and they're using it in a good way, like in various spaces. Yeah.
Do you think it's
So
because they ask good questions? You know, is that what we think it is? I love questions personally, and I feel like the better question you ask, the better quality you yield. But when really looking at just how in the U.S. we are really that far behind, and I mean it's been times where some of the top accelerators I've had to break down how things could be applied on a more climate scale, or I've even had to explain like how the fashion industry is a climate problem. You know, these are things that they're just like, oh, I didn't know. And it's like, but you lead this huge thing, you're positioned as a expert in this, you know? And so I just wonder what you all think it may be of why places like China, or even other parts of the world that's just quicker to jump into real large solutions, do that.
I have a suggestion for what it might be. They're putting enormous investment into research. If you look at the output of peer-reviewed articles, in the last decade, it's an exponential curve, and there's so much coming out of China in terms of knowledge products. The volume of peer-reviewed articles is really amazing. So I suspect that's correlated with the level of investment into universities and research. So that would be my guess.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the information comes from. It's definitely from the experience that United States is kind of behind. You know, I think it's like that. It's not. I don't agree with that much. But maybe you're more experienced. I feel like they are doing lots of great things, but the scale is kind of different, and the situation is kind of different. That's my assumption. And also, I love the idea that, well, you said that, you know, we need to ask questions, you know, to ask better questions. But my concern mainly, because I just want to go back to the AI and how we do the research on something. My concern about asking the questions is that who is feeding the answers? Like, because my main work, you know, in the last 2 years, I'm working on ethical aspects of, before leaving academia, I was working on the ethical aspects of, you know, AI or visualization specifically. And it's like AI now is generating based on the data that we gave it.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about asking the AI the questions. I'm talking more so like in general in the room.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
No, I don't believe in just asking AI questions. I had to teach AI the difference between ethnicity and race.
Yeah.
There's definitely issues. I'm just meaning
Sorry,
like
so that was
actually in the
misunderstood.
room with those who like get to make those decisions. Like for instance, I'm actually about to dive deeper in food waste. And I'm looking at how can we use AI to enhance and alleviate essentially food waste and make it like go different places and be more efficient. But I can continue to ask questions to get down a deeper path so we can get a really strategic solution. And some of those in the room, even like the government partners, you know, their minds will essentially stop at, we can see if there's some orgs who want to pick up food and maybe take it to their population. So asking better questions and like that.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Definitely true.
Yeah. But I love what Cameron said about the peer reviewed. I remember being in high school. I think that was actually maybe the last time I actually had to utilize that word peer review. And once we got to college, and I was actually in science first. I was in biochemistry before I switched over to like, you know, being what I am today. But we didn't talk about peer reviews. And so one of like my biggest issues that I've been coming up or running into this last year is we will spend money on research. I think that it's not good research. It's a lot of times it'll turn into, especially on the public side, it'll be, how about we just do our research through community engagement? And I definitely believe that we should be asking those who are involved and get their opinions. I believe there's a more efficient way to do it because right now it's been watered down to, you go to that, you know, event on Saturday. Oh, you only talk to 50 people? Great. And it's like, but your city is like 5 million. That's not a good population size.
Yeah.
But after they curate these reports, we'll have evidence of like, okay, more money and time and attention needs to go into these 3 things only. And we can some of us consultants will communicate this, and then they'll be like, oh, okay. Come back a month later, the money has went to many grants across like 100 random things. And it's just like, can we please get to a point where we're building upon what we've spent money on previously, what we spent time on previously? And I'm all for like everyone wanting to do their own thing. Like I'm not against that, but I don't think that we're at a time where we should be doing that because we're so far behind, you know? And so I'm definitely going to look into just this whole China peer review and the exponential growth thing. Because I love knowledge and data. And I think that at one point we really made sure things were data backed, and it got a little bit looser, especially on the entrepreneurial side of as long as you can show who your customer data is, your business can go versus like, but what does the real research says holistically, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So it made me think like we've done a lot of research previously that we haven't implemented those into our society, into environment, like how we're gonna go on with this, with all this research. Like, are there any new strategies that are getting involved? That's right now that we have this um, artificial intelligence to help us benefit, like how these are uh, how the AI can help this research in these areas, and how are there any plans of implementing those research? Like, this is the question that came to my mind.
So I personally have, I always think about how many more research and peer review article we need outside. If you open like even highly impacted journals, when you open those, there are lots of papers there that, you know, the number of download that, you know, they've been downloaded like once or twice. So how many more paper do we need? And I think that's a bug in academia that people create. You know, it's a number, it's based on number. Your success is based on the number of papers that you have published or the number of citations that you receive. So I think one of the things that AI can be helpful with that is to make it more easier for decision makers or people, communities, to understand what's behind these articles, these peer review papers, these researches. So this is what comes to my mind, that okay, maybe AI can help me, you know, summarize it, or I don't know, visualize it, make it simpler, or even make it like accessible, because there are lots of papers that are not accessible. They are not open access outside. Maybe they can be more accessible outside using AI. So these are the things that comes to my mind after your question, Mahnaz, which is like, okay, maybe having a mutual language, AI can be a mutual language for you know, researchers and decision makers and communities, or people who don't know how to speak English, you know. So yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. Thank you, Ellie. So how can we ensure that AI driven like how we can balance this dual impact of AI, like in collaboration and innovation? Like, let's discuss the dual nature of AI and sustainability. Cameron, from your accelerator experience, how are entrepreneurs balancing innovation with environmental impact? Are there any things that you want to share in this area?
Well, one of the participants in EcoLaunch is using remote sensing to be able to detect changes in vegetation to do adaptive management, and also collect the evidence for verification for payments through voluntary carbon market and biodiversity credits. So it's one thing to keep in mind is what first comes to mind when you say AI is ChatGPT. But there's so much more to that. And I think the real power is using machine learning with spatial information and temporal information to be able to have predictive analytics, and that way we can respond to things more effectively. It can also, I mean, there was an example before of community engagement. It can be used hand in hand with community engagement. Like one example is in Greece, there was a parking lot, and they were wanting to renovate it using nature-based solutions, so incorporate vegetation, water features, and they used a generative AI along with certain parameters and what they wanted, and they generated 90 or so designs for that site, but they got feedback and input from the local community about preferences, and in the end they came up with some really good designs for that. So I mean, we're really only just at the beginning of seeing what potential this has for good, but we do definitely need to remain vigilant and mindful of the risks, both social, ethical, and also environmental, given the large footprint, water and energy footprint that AI has.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. Anyone else wants to give their opinion about this matter, how to balance the AI impacts and benefits?
I mean, I think it's just important to make sure it's an and not an or an if later. I don't really, I think, especially like, for instance, if those are starting to launch more incubators, accelerators, a part of the questions that they ask or a part of that process, fellowship, however long the length of time, it does need to start including a piece where, okay, if you're going to build this, if you have this technology, if you're building this technology, getting those to start thinking about how can they ensure that their technologies are being mindful of the environment. But you know how we have like B Corps and things like that? Maybe it's even creating a new certification type language so that companies, especially newer and non, big tech, can start assigning it to themselves so that we can start kind of getting a familiarity as regular consumers and stuff like, oh, I want to use that because they said that, they took the extra steps to prove and be transparent about their business in X, Y, and Z. I think that would maybe be very beneficial. I love the whole idea of AI to help synthesize some of those reports and stuff. I think that that's a great dual impact situation that we need to go in a little bit more. Maybe it's somebody actually just has to create it, honestly, because some people don't know that you can actually just take a report and put it in ChatGPT, and she will. I call it a she, and she will synthesize it for you, and but again, it kind of comes in and like, do you really get the juice? Do you know what type of questions to then prompt so that it's tailored to your program? So maybe someone essentially needs to create that database that does have access to those highly skilled peer reviews, but kind of give it like the Netflix algorithm of just kind of, knowing what you do like so that it can tailor the solutions, but make them digestible, because 200, 300, 75, nobody's about to. We are not a country that likes to read anymore. So it's difficult to do that. And then I also just love the whole idea of AI for community engagement. I would love to see that a lot more. I've seen local governments spend, tens of thousands and even up to $100,000 for community engagement, and essentially everyone's always just collecting the same data every single year, and it's just like, we could have been did that. There's so many ways we could have did this, and I'm probably gonna go jump in that arena as well, because there's just so many ways we could have did this, and now
Yeah.
that money that we spent each year could go towards the solution, because now it's like, oh, well, we spent the money to get the data. We don't have money to go implement nothing, and it's just like, that's crazy to me. So it's really crazy. But also just making sure, lastly, I'll say, having that ethics part of the balance so that everyone is included, and making sure that as we are developing more, or even the current, that these companies are willing to bring in the experts who can go through the system and be like, oh, here are your blind spots, so that everyone is included. Like I said, I had to teach ChatGPT the difference between like race and ethnic groups. And for some people, of course, they hate like the DEI term, but it's actually important that the AI knows the difference between ethnic groups, because ethnic groups
Yeah.
have different dietary restrictions. So if we were in the middle of a disaster and I routed the last of, the gummies, the bread, or so-and-so to this group, guess what? It's going to waste now, which is now also an environmental issue, because if you would have had the proper data of knowing that that ethnic group is allergic to this, can't eat this for religious purposes, so-and-so, so it actually does need to get that deep. But that's how I would love to see us go into
Yeah.
balance, dual impact a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I can't agree more with that. ChatGPT needs to learn more about this stuff. Like, he's so stupid about this
But it's like I
area.
said, it goes back to the data sets, right? And unfortunately, we live in a country where erasure of other cultures is a thing. So first, we have to make sure the data sets can even be grabbed, and that means that
Yeah,
there does need to be an investment so those databases can even exist. How does that exist at the same time where we have a country that's making sure I know that if a plane falls out of the sky, it's my fault because I'm Black or I'm a DEI hire, like
yeah,
it's where's that private investment to help us get these
exactly.
things? So it all
Yeah,
has
inclusion and diversity needs to
Yeah,
be more regarding
exactly.
AI.
Yeah. Ellie, would you like to add something? We want to answer also the questions that we got in the comments. So, Ellie, would you like to add
So I
something
have
about
lots
that?
of things to add, but I prefer to get to the questions. So
Okay.
what I really want to say is that it's the time to make sure that we have lots of information from localized places or broad. The data collection needs to be more broad, inclusive, and diverse, so that we can better use ChatGPT. And I think I have more comments that I'm gonna make later.
There's some good questions. Now, do you want to
Yeah.
take them?
Okay. Let me share the first one from Michelle.
My girl Michelle.
Do you know what organizations that are lobbying government to try and affect this in policy, etc.? Who wants to answer that?
I can't.
Is this also like a
Well,
US?
I think it might be especially for US government. Yeah.
There's a few that have weighed in. The World Economic Forum advocates for responsible AI development and its integration into climate and sustainability strategies through global policy initiatives. So the World Economic Forum, the UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme, have documents on embedding AI into global environmental governance, and the Global Partnership on AI, you can look that up. They advise governments on AI policy, including the ethical use of AI, including in environmental sustainability. And then there's Nature for Climate, and they partner with governments to promote nature-based solutions, and that includes AI. And the other is AI for Good.
Yeah. So she add that either US or UK, everywhere,
I
anywhere
think it's
really.
important to put
So
all those in one place, and for all of us who care to promote that on our socials too. I think social media's impact doesn't get used in a way that creates progress in this area. Everybody's more worried about, Elon and whatever else versus I'm with you, Val.
Yeah.
Versus promoting, using our power for good and just promoting. Like I feel like these causes need publicists.
I'm interested to see how that would work, especially given I feel like the most progress was happening on a TikTok. And of course, TikTok's about to go dark in 24 hours, which is crazy. But Facebook just rolled back their fact-checking situation. And then I can tell you hundreds of organizations that have been blackballed or just quieted any type of for good situations they do post. They see a decline in all types of engagement and reach and things. So it'll be a little difficult.
Why is that?
Because money buys anything in this country.
That's almost the answer to everything.
Money buys
it's always about money.
Water, air, money buys it all.
Because the rich people will be able to afford water when it's been minimized, when there's less of it.
Yeah, but there are there's Harvard and a few other universities, a few smaller tech companies. They've all, in the last year at least, registered to also lobby for essentially the decentralization, so that OpenAI can't control as much as they can control, so that Google can't come in and dominate like they dominate. And so indirectly, we could see some effects, good effects happen if it wasn't just so centralized, with billionaires, of course.
Yeah.
The Broligarchy.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the great question, Michelle, and I hope you got your answer. And let's go to the next question. That's a long one. You want to read it yourself?
At this, there's a few questions in there. So the two main things, one is about mitigating AI's environmental impact. And some of the things I mentioned before is using renewable energy to power the data centers. And also you can use more energy efficient AI models. So there are some more lightweight algorithms that aren't as computationally intensive. So using the appropriate model for the task, and then using that life cycle analysis, you can get an understanding of the full range of impacts. So then you can evaluate what it's worth. With the other part of that question is around addressing bias and lack of diversity. It's all about the training model. And so you can proactively feed that to counter the bias that's implicit in the sort of majority, but it's really difficult. Even what they found is that even when you try to correct that, the dominant paradigms and the norms, even if they're stereotypical, tend to burst through. So it's actually quite challenging. And there are ethical AI standards like the OECD AI principles. And I mentioned the AI for Good. They've got documents that advocate for transparency, accountability, and fairness in AI development. But it's one thing to have these principles, but actually doing it is quite challenging.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
thank you, Cameron. And I also heard that. Sorry, Ellie. I also heard that there are so many things that you can do with small language models instead of using the large language models instead. So not all the companies needs to implement large language models in their the things that they want to do. So, and it's gonna get them so much less energy to use the small language models. Yeah.
And also using cloud-based, this is kind of what you were saying, cloud-based data analysis is consumes more. So maybe doing on local computers or something, and I don't know how it can affect, but I was thinking about going back in creating the hardwares and softwares that are hardware and software that, that is used for creating the tools for AI.
Yeah.
So maybe we can be more efficient and use reusable energies for creating those software and hardware infrastructures. That was what I wanted to add to the first part of the question.
Okay. Orlando, I think I hope that we answered your questions. Let's go to the next. I'm not sure if it's a question or like Louis, I hope that I pronounce your name right. I think large companies having a certain profit margin using AI should be mandatory made to contribute to sustainability efforts and include their activities in a report for tracking and transfers. I can't agree more. Yeah, definitely.
I think the Broligarchy would fight back against that.
It
Yeah.
could be something like the 15% pledge, though. I think that's people in the beauty industry and fashion industry who's starting to put some of their profits to the side for like those who are, but they would definitely fight against that. I mean, you see how the BOI report was supposed to go into effect, but now it's not, but now it is, but now it's not again, because they don't want that transparency of who owns the companies and all the shell companies out. So that'll be
And if the
interesting.
money is allocated in a wrong place, wrong time, wrong issue, so it's like
Yeah.
There is another technology that's emerging that I think is going to have huge implications for both AI and its environmental impact, and that's quantum computing. And up until very recently, quantum computers needed to be kept at near absolute zero, which is like colder than space. And that takes energy to do that. But just very recently, it's been worked out how to have quantum computers work at room temperature. And so they have just mind-bogglingly superior computing power compared to anything that's come before. And they use for that relatively less resources per calculation. So as quantum computing becomes available and then affordable, it's going to have AI is going to supercharge the capacity of AI while at the same time reducing its environmental footprint.
Yeah, exactly. So we have another comment. Michelle said, VEC UNEP Global Partnership on AI, Nature or Climate, AI for Good. Brilliant, thanks for those, Cameron. So thank you. And the last comment is funny how money is a made-up thing we all believe in. Yeah, exactly.
It's not even real.
Yeah, it's not even real. Like it's an artificial
I
thing
think
that
above
we
the
made
money,
up.
the greed. I think the greed factor is really the driving force. The greedy for power, greedy for money. It all
Yeah.
encompasses a certain type that type seems to be in charge. I may be just making things up, but I think I'm pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we have 2 minutes. Any last thing that you want to add? Oh, we have another question.
this is a comment, I guess, about IBM.
Okay, I believe it's IBM who's pioneering a quantum supercomputer. Does anyone know about that?
Yeah, in December of 23, IBM unveiled the IBM Quantum System 2. So it's
Okay, thanks,
they're
Orlando,
one of the
for the
leaders in that
information.
space.
So thank you, everyone. We have only 1 minute. I wanted to thank you all for the incredible insights you share. Today's discussion show us how AI can be both powerful tool and a challenge for sustainability at the same time. And Yeah, reminding us the importance think of ethics, collaboration, and inclusivity in all our efforts. So, any last thing you would like to add, Anne?
No, just thank you to everybody. I would love to connect with everybody and learn how we can all use our socials to move these positive initiatives along instead of things that don't do that way. So yeah, please help us help everybody by spreading important information via socials instead of junk. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much. I learned so much today.
yeah, me too.
Thank you for organizing that.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
much. I got some notes, some new
If
things to
I
go into.
if I could have just one takeaway, it would
sure.
be while you need to be mindful, acknowledge, and mitigate the negative ethical and environmental risks associated with AI, it's not going to be put back in the box. So we might as well use this tool for good to benefit people and the planet.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Good conclusion.
Perfect ending. Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron. Okay, thank you all. I hope you have a great weekend and rest of your day.
You too.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.